Hey guys, it's Christian from South Beach Sports, and we're here today to talk about UFC 263 and its top 3 fights going on this weekend. So first we're going to talk about the event, the 5-round fight between Nate Diaz and Leon Edwards. Nate Diaz hasn't had much success as of late. He's 36, he's only lost 2 out of his last 3 fights, which come over Anthony Pettis. But he's pretty good regardless. He doesn't have top power, like he's not the strongest man. He wouldn't knock you out with one punch, but he's very good at striking. He's a submission specialist, and his cardio is insane. However, Edwards is also not known for finishing fights with his KO power, but he usually takes fights all the way to the distance where he wins. But if it's going to be a knockout, in my opinion, Edwards would knock out Nate Diaz, not the other way around. And it's crazy to see Nate Diaz as an underdog, or this big as an underdog, because right now the odds are Nate Diaz is plus 450 and Leon Edwards is minus 500. That is the implied probability that Nate Diaz has an 18% chance of winning, while Leon Edwards has an 82% chance of winning. That is a major difference, and hopefully Nate Diaz can shock up the world. But in my opinion, Leon Edwards is too skilled for Nate Diaz. His technique is amazing. His foundation, his fundamentals are much better than Nate Diaz. And if he can keep the fight standing, Leon Edwards would wash Nate Diaz. The next fight, which is the co-main event of the card, Figueiredo versus Moreno. That was a war back in UFC 256. These two men, flyweights, went on a 5-round war together. They were throwing strikes. It almost seemed as if Moreno had some ability to stay alive, because every time Figueiredo threw his power shots, Moreno was still standing, still throwing back at him. It was a trade, and it was amazing. It was amazing to watch. And these two are running it back this weekend, which is one of the best fights, in my opinion, we'll see in a while. The odds right now between this fight is Deiveson Figueiredo being the favorite with a negative 230 or minus 230, and Brandon Moreno being the underdog with a plus 185. My opinion on this fight, though, would be Deiveson Figueiredo takes it, maybe in a 3rd-round knockout. I understand Moreno has a great chin. Moreno's a great wrestler. Moreno has a great heart. But Deiveson Figueiredo is huge for the weight class. He has power compared to all the flyweights. He has a great chin because he's much bigger than the rest of them. And one thing we have to remember is Brandon Figueiredo, one night before the fight, was with an illness, and he got out the hospital at 2 a.m. and still went on to fight Brandon Moreno in a classic 5-round war, and came out on top. So David Figueiredo is perfectly fine now, and I honestly feel like it's going to be a 3rd-round knockout. But either way, this is going to be a classic fight, great co-main event, and now we're going to go on to the main card. The main event of this card is Israel Adesanya versus Marvin Vettori 2. These two met back in 2018 when they were both new to the UFC. Adesanya was known as a knockout artist, while Vettori was known as a man with heart who kept coming forward and a good wrestler. Those two fought, and Adesanya won with a split decision, which in my opinion, it was a unanimous decision. Vettori had one judge that gave him that fight because at the 3rd round, all Vettori did was wrestle and hug Israel, while Israel was putting in more damage on the feet, and in my opinion, clearly won that fight. But after that fight, Israel ended up dominating the 185 position pound title. I mean, the whole division has been his ever since then. And then he went up to fight Jan for the light heavyweight title, and lost, and ended up taking his first MMA loss ever in his record. However, Adesanya's gone back down to his division 185, where he's undefeated, and he's looking to take on Vettori. Vettori has won 5 in a row since Adesanya, but none of his opponents have been in the top 10. And all he does is really wrestle them. No knockout, no TKO. All he does is wrestle them, and he has a submission victory. I'm assuming in order to win, Vettori's game plan is to be taking down Israel Adesanya, but with Israel probably really good at, or is really good at, not probably, is his takedown defense. As a striker, being able to have great takedown defense is very important, to be able to keep the fight standing. And if the fight is standing, I don't see anyone being able to stand with Israel Adesanya. And so the odds of the fight right now are Israel Adesanya as the favorite as a minus 280 and Marvin Vettori as a positive 220. However, people still think Vettori can win just by wrestling because of what they saw back in the last fight with Jan and Israel. Jan, for the last 2 rounds, wrestled Israel, and Israel had no answer. However, we gotta think about this. Israel went up in weight to 205, and 205 is heavier than his natural weight. His natural weight's around 200. He came in at 200 and weigh-in, while Jan's natural weight is around 225, let's say. So after they weighed in, Israel weighed in at 200, Jan weighed in at 205, and Jan balloons up to 220, 225 on fight night, while Israel stays at 200. When there's a 20-25 pound advantage, it helps the wrestler out immensely. As we saw when Jan took down Israel had no answer for it. He was on the ground, stuck, and just getting out wrestled. However, in this fight, Marvin and Israel are both coming in at 185. They're both natural weights around 200, maybe 210 for Vettori, but I don't see him going up that much. So it'll be equal in weight. All it will take now is skill for takedown defense instead of brute force, which Israel is very skillful. Now, one thing Marvin has to watch out for is obviously when all his shots get defended, he has to make sure he doesn't rush, because Israel's really good at setting up traps and feints and being able to outstrike any opponent at any time. In my opinion, though, Israel Adesanya wins this fight. He's too skilled in his striking to lose Vettori, and as long as he shows his improved takedown defense, he should be able to pick off his opponent and retain his title. The way I see this fight going, though, is either a decision to Israel or a knockout in round 4 for Israel. A TKO, knockout, any of that. But yeah, thank you for watching. It's been Christian in South Beach Sports, and see you next time.